I think Joan Kruchov's taunt to Greg Chillak's mom, Lucille, on 90 Day Fiancé has exposed her true intentions behind wanting to marry the American man. Joan traveled to America on a K-1 visa on 90 Day Fiancé Season 11. Joan has been facing challenges as she makes her way to the aisle, mainly her having to stay under the same roof as Greg's mom in their house in Long Island, where Lucille has some strict rules. It was after Joan arrived in the US that she realized she and Greg would have to sleep in separate rooms. It made Joan cry. Joan also complained about Greg's house not being organized and didn't like that their two family dogs were allowed on the bed. At first, it looked like Lucille was making Joan feel unwelcome on purpose, especially when she started keeping tabs on how many showers Joan was taking. Joan had literally flown thousands of miles and was tired, so she took a shower before hitting the hay and took a second one when she woke up. However, Lucille was now being compared to Debbie Johnson and Greg to Colt Johnson. They even have a slot machine at home like Colt did. Joan got to spend some time alone with Greg's mother, Lucille. When Greg headed for his interview for the state job, Lucille took Joan's help in finishing a long-due project, which was sorting through a pile of misfit socks to find matching pairs. Lucille was happy with Joan and even praised her for taking the initiative to clean the bathroom, which Greg could never have. "So I think she's doing all right," Lucille told the cameras. Lucille was trying her best to bond well with Joan and asked her if there was anything Joan didn't like in America. Joan started off by praising Lucille, but while Lucille thought that Joan would tell her about how she missed her food from back home, Joan told her she needed privacy. She told Greg's mom that she was always home most of the time and added, "Think you should go out more." Lucille told Joan her words offended her because it was Lucille's house. Lucille wondered why Joan would say something like that, since she had been more than accommodating to Greg and Joan. "And I find Joan's comment very unsettling." Lucille got signals that Joan was not an appreciative person. "I thought Joan was being snarky when she told Lucille, 'It is your house, you are free to stay.' It's clear to me now that Joan was more than a little out of line with her comment about Lucille living in her own house. She seemed certain that she was going to leave the house soon and made it known to Greg's mom, who knew her son very well, more than Joan had known Greg. I believe the fact that Greg lived with his mom and didn't have a job are things that Joan should have known beforehand. Joan led me to believe that she lived a better life in Uganda than she does in America. Joan is motivated and headstrong compared to Greg, who has been aimless and doesn't have a plan. Therefore, I feel Joan could have helped Greg improve his lifestyle instead, and perhaps helped him with some money for both of them to live in a house she liked with the privacy she wanted. It doesn't look like Greg misled Joan because she would have talked about that on 90 Day Fiancé. Joan wants a $3,000 dowry from the unemployed man instead.